the more you have cut down, the lower the calories are initially, the more work needs to be done. The closer you are to your maintenance level, the faster you get through the process of reverse.
Welcome to Cravings Control for Fat Loss. I'm your host, Laura Cavallo, former sugar binger, overeater, and yo-yo dieter turned fat loss and cravings coach for hundreds of busy women. Here at Cravings Control for Fat Loss, I'll be sharing mindset, movement, and metabolism strategies for those who are ready to ditch the fat diet cycle and slim down without counting calories, tracking points, or giving up any of the foods they love. Get ready to embrace progress over perfection, grace over guilt, and bring curiosity and learning to the inevitable ups and downs of your life. Expect a decrease in your cravings while seeing and feeling an improvement in how you look, how you feel, and your overall quality of life. I am so excited you're here, boo. Let's get started. In today's episode, I welcome Kersten Kimura back for her second guest chat on the podcast. Kersten is a personal trainer and nutrition coach whose passion is to help women speed up their metabolism, gain muscle, and lose body fat in a hormonally healthy way. Her focus isn't just on giving you the right macros or workouts. She makes sure that your health stays great along the way by using simple hacks that keep the metabolism as healthy as possible. In today's episode, Kersten shares her expertise in helping women reverse diet, an approach to helping those whose metabolism has slowed down, either voluntarily or involuntarily due to lower calorie intake, and get back up to a healthy functioning level. We discuss how to know if you need a reverse diet, the best approach to a reverse, and most importantly, managing your expectations during the process. We hope you enjoy the show and make sure you listen to the end for a special offer from Kersten. Well, here we are. Welcome to another episode of Cravings Control for Fat Loss. I am your host and cravings coach, Laura Cavallo, and I'm here with Kersten
Well
Kimura.
done.
She just schooled me on how to say her name, Kersten Kimura. And she has been on the podcast before, but today we are talking about a very specific and exciting topic all about reverse dieting. And who is reverse dieting for, how do you do it, and the step-by-step approach and what to look for and all of the questions. So thanks for being here, Kersten. I am excited to have you and to dive into this discussion.
Yes, me too. Thank you so much for having me. Always great talking to you.
So how many clients are you currently working with, or what percentage of clients do you see that need a reverse diet, and what is a reverse diet?
Okay. Probably around 75% of the new people that I start working with need initially a reverse diet. And reverse diet is a way to heal your metabolism, bring up your metabolic rate, which has dropped, and in most cases as a result of chronic dieting. So we are a society of like nonstop dieting women, I feel like. So most everybody has done something. And if there is a severe dieting history, long dieting history, especially in the past 2 years, then these women's metabolism isn't usually in the optimal place to start losing body fat. But this is the goal for most of them. They want to lose weight, they want to lose fat, but because they are already in a very low metabolic state, it is not possible without doing a reverse diet before we can actually start getting the real fat loss results.
Okay. So to summarize that, as a result of chronic dieting, where women may have possibly gone from eating, say, 2,000 calories, then to 1,800, then to 1,600, then to 1,400, then to 1,200, their metabolism has continuously downregulated and found sort of a new number, a new calorie burn to kind of hang out at.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So they've gone from, say, their body's using 2,000 calories per day to, say, 12,000 or 1,200 calories per day. And now their metabolism needs to slowly reverse back to that 13, 14, 16, 18 to get back to a maintenance level where it's more healthy for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also say sometimes the calorie cut isn't even as a result of dieting necessarily, although in most cases it is, but sometimes it's also that the person just has low appetite. It has been like unintentional. There's just like a person who's like, I'm not too interested in food, which is always very interesting for me because I'm like, how are you not interested? But there's seriously some people who, maybe they're also quite sedentary, so their bodies are not sending them the hunger signals. There's like not enough physical activity, and then that's what their appetite is like. They only want to they don't want to eat more than 1,200, 1,400 calories, but the effect is still the same. The metabolism is still slow, whether it happened as a result of like intentionally cutting the calories down or unintentionally just having a very low appetite.
Right. That's a good point to make, because I find that some women who do come to me and we start sort of tracking their nutrition and their food, there's periods of like under eating, but then there's periods of overeating. But they're under eating. They're just like, I'm not that hungry, right? I'm not that hungry. But then they end up having cravings, or, they're triggered by certain foods at certain times, and that's when they end up overeating. So a lot of the undereating can also be unintentional, but also as a result of possibly overeating at periods as well, and then wanting to sort of quote unquote balance out how much they overeat with undereating as well. Let's talk about the myth of fat storing mode. Remember fat storing mode when 5-10 years ago, when this concept was going around of, because you weren't eating enough, that your body was trying to hold on to extra calories and stored fat as a way of preserving energy. Is this true, or where did that come from? And kind of, not where did it come from, but rather what is the truth behind that, and what do we really mean when we say that?
I think it is a very simplified term, but it works to explain the point, right? So basically, your body can only burn what you give it. So if you keep your calories very, very low, it tries to conserve energy because there's not enough energy coming in. So yeah, it starts holding on to the little bit that you are giving to it. So now if we want to speed things up, and a lot of women complain like, I have such a slow metabolism, it's so sluggish, and they think there's something like wrong with them, or it's like a genetic thing. It's not. It's just literally your lifestyle. So if you have been reducing your calories so dramatically, and now your body literally all it wants to burn is like 1,400 that you're giving to it, what we have to do with the reverse diet is, you can think of it as like adding fuel to the fire. So when you add more calories and do it in a smart way, I would probably talk about it later, how it shouldn't be done. If you do it in a smart way, then you add some fire to your metabolism, and it starts working again, and it starts burning more calories again. So yeah, I think it's a very simplified way of saying it, but it's easy to understand, I think, for a lot of people. And I think, I don't remember if we talked about it in your last podcast that we did together too, but it's kind of like if you have spent all your money in your bank account, right? You have nothing else to spend. So it's kind of similar, right? You have maxed yourself out metabolically. If you're eating like 1,400, there's nothing else to take anymore. Your body doesn't, like, you cannot go on an expensive vacation if you have no money. So now if you want to go somewhere or buy something new, you have to make some back, and you have to, get some more money some ways, right? So that you can afford that vacation or new thing. So I think that maybe helps to explain it too.
Yeah. And so how can women know that they need a reverse diet?
Yeah, well, the first thing that most women understand, or what kind of wakes them up, is that when they start another diet and it doesn't work anymore. So a lot of times people are like, I used to be able to lose weight really easily. I would just cut my calories down, the weight would come off. But what's going on now? It doesn't happen anymore for me. What am I doing wrong? And that's kind of like what gets their attention, that something is off. But honestly, there are things that have been happening already before you get to that point of weight loss resistance. So you probably have already had some hormonal issues. And again, a lot of women say, oh, my hormones are just messed up, or it's a menopause. But then the question is, why are your hormones messed up? It's not like this thing outside of us that just decides to go crazy. It's like our lifestyle that has been impacting it. And so if you're under eating all the time, you do get these symptoms of hormonal imbalance, such as problems with your periods, PMS, really painful, or you're skipping them, or you get thyroid issues, which often manifest as like hair loss, feeling cold all the time, weak nails. You feel like you cannot rest ever, kind of like on high alert all the time. So these things actually have already happened before, but they are not very alarming for a lot of women until they are like, oh, but now I cannot lose weight, because unfortunately it's the weight loss that
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people are after. And that's kind of like when the eyes open and they see that, oh, it's not working anymore. So this is one big sign that you are probably over dieted, and you can't diet anymore. So what we have to do is to go in the opposite direction and start adding calories.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you bring up a good point about women not having that awareness of some of the other factors that might be that have manifested as a result of this low caloric
Hmm.
metabolic rate. And you mentioned a few of them, and I wanted to add to some of those too. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, like possibly exercise recovery. So if you're not recovering well, or if you're having more injuries, or you're not able to make
Yeah.
progress in the gym. Sleep disruptions, I think you mentioned, PMS symptoms, even digestion could be affected, right? Because what's happening now is your metabolic rate is so low that your body is just trying to preserve energy and keep that energy going at it to the vital organs, right? It's trying to keep your heart going. It's trying to make sure that your lungs are operating efficiently. It's trying to make sure that your digestive system, like your kidneys and your intestines and your pancreas and everything, is processing toxins and moving them through. So that's what it's going to prioritize. It's going to shut down your reproductive organs. It's going to maybe impact your sleep. It's going to impact other areas of your life where you're trying to expend energy and focus on. You might have more foggy brain, right? Have more of a foggy mind, not be able to focus, be more irritable. And so those are all signs and symptoms that maybe your metabolism has downregulated. It's super
Hmm.
low, and your body's trying to preserve energy and just keep you alive on some of these
Hmm.
basic
Yeah,
functions.
you're absolutely right. And I would actually add one more thing. If you never have any sex drive, that's also pretty common, because, like you
Oh,
said,
yes.
the priorities, your body sets its own priorities, and this is not a priority, right? Like, who cares, right? And so that's
Mm-hmm.
one of the things. And a lot of women, I don't know if they even struggle with that. It's sometimes it's even like it doesn't even cross their mind, like, oh, should I be even thinking about this? But consider it. But sex drive is actually one of the signs of your health and how you're doing metabolically too. And if you never have it, then something is off. It's not normal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so, say someone comes to you and they're like, I'm struggling with losing weight, and you suspect that they may need a reverse diet. What are the steps that you take initially with a woman, or I don't know, men, if you've worked with men before, to help them uh, to help you assess and understand if they really do need a reverse diet, and what's that
Yeah,
process
it
like?
is very important to figure out if the person really needs it or not, because little based on that, I can tell them what we're going to do next. And if I'm not able to assess correctly, then we might take the wrong approach, right? So what I always ask every single one of my clients is to show me what they're eating for at least 7 days. And during those 7 days, I'm asking them to eat totally the way they normally do, and not making the food log cleaner, better, try to impress me, nothing like that, because I want to get a real
Mm-hmm.
picture. And I tell them that if I don't get a real picture, if you start now already cutting or reducing or changing something, then I'm going to get a wrong idea and my steps are not going to be correct for you. So please be super honest. If you
Mm-hmm.
have your cookie every day, keep having it. If you have your wine every day, keep having it, just for the period of 7 days that we're tracking. And during this time, I also want to make sure that their scale weight stays the same, because, again, that tells me if they already started adjusting something, and we don't want that, right? So at least 7 days of food logs. I want to see what's going on there. And then then I look how many calories they are taking in, and then see what they should be taking in based on my own calculations. And these calculations are based on their weight, their height, and their activity level and their age. So these numbers help me to figure out what their maintenance should be. Maintenance is also known as total daily energy expenditure. And when I see that their 7 day calories actually add up to a lot less than what their total daily energy expenditure is or maintenance is, then we know that this is a case for a reverse diet. And especially if they are eating less than their BMR, which is basal metabolic rate, which doesn't even take into account the activity. So let's say somebody's basal metabolic rate is 1400 calories, and they have been eating 1,300 calories, there's absolutely zero question. They absolutely do need a reverse diet. But sometimes, people are quite close to that estimated total daily energy expenditure. Maybe they're right there. Maybe the estimated number is like 2,200 for them, and they're eating 2,100 or 2,200. Well, then we can, very likely start trying the calorie cut immediately, because the body is not as damaged, or it's not maybe damaged at all. And of course, it's even better if a person
Mm-hmm.
has been eating at their maintenance or even slightly above, because then we know that we can start getting weight loss, fat loss results. But like I said, most people who are over dieted, and I see these examples, like I said, a lot. Sometimes I hear things like, there's certain diets I don't necessarily have to name here, but that get people to eat like 1,000 calories a day. And this is
Oh my
absolutely
goodness.
a case for a reverse diet. And it's going to take some time. The more you have cut down, the lower the calories are initially, the more work needs to be done. The closer you are to your maintenance level, the faster you get through the process of reverse.
Yeah. And you brought up something interesting. You talked about basal metabolic rate. Can we talk about what that is as a compared to your daily expenditure? Can you just kind of talk about what that gap is in the middle and how you might
Yeah,
calculate
yeah.
that?
So BMR, basal metabolic rate, is the estimate. I always want to say estimated, because these are just based on formulas, and the actual number might be slightly different, but it's the estimated number of calories that your body burns at rest. So let's say you're sick or something, you're lying in bed all day long, you still need calories. And that's news for a lot of people, and was news to me when I was like in my early 20s and just was hammering my body with excessive running, which was crazy. But I never realized that my body has calorie needs even when I don't do anything. So, it's
Mm-hmm.
different for everybody. So for me, it's something like 1,500 or 1,600 calories that it just burns at rest every day anyway, right? And now the total daily energy expenditure is when we add to that all the activity that we're doing. It's weightlifting, even like walking, stuff you do around the house. Everybody moves a little bit. Hardly anybody sits all day long. So that, of course, then increases that number. And so now the total daily energy expenditure for
Mm-hmm.
most people is, somewhere around 2,000. For many people, it's more 2,500. It really depends on your activity level. So yeah, the extra comes from the movement.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. And the movement, and also thermic
Yeah.
effect of food, right? The the calories that are required to
Yep.
digest your food. And yeah, physical activity, we break it up into exercise, the non-exercise related activity, exactly what Kirsten was saying. Walking, fidgeting, taking the garbage outside, running errands,
Mm-hmm.
things like that. And so your metabolism is made up, your total daily energy costs are made up of all of these different variables, right? Your basal metabolic rate, the thermic effect of food, your exercise, your daily exercise
Yes.
expenditure. And so we need to make sure that we're
Yep.
eating enough, right, to meet those calorie needs. And if you're in a fat loss phase, I'd love to hear your take on this, Kirsten. Obviously, it depends on clients' goals, but this calorie deficit that you want to take clients through, in my experience, my clients have had success with a slight calorie deficit done
Mm-hmm.
over time. What's the amount of calorie deficit? And I know we're jumping ahead here, but I'm curious your approach, your calorie deficit, the max that you will go ahead and assign to a client that you feel is
Mm-hmm.
safe, and how long will you keep them there before the metabolism may adapt down to that new calorie intake
Mm-hmm.
number?
Yeah, so you're talking about somebody who's healthy and ready to start a cut, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So typically, I start with about 15% of deficit. And if it's a larger person who has more stored up, then we can go up to 20%, but I don't usually go more. And if
Mm,
we don't get results, if the scale is not moving or the measurements are not going down in the first 3 weeks, then we reduce. But I am definitely more a little bit cautious, careful, maybe you could say, I don't know, conservative in the sense that I don't want to start with a huge cut, because I don't want the same metabolic slowdown happen very suddenly and people hit a wall. Even though initially, when you take like quarter of somebody's daily intake down, like 25%, of course you're gonna get results very quickly. but also you're more likely to hit a plateau. So my goal is always to cut as much as we need to get the results, but give you as much food as possible at the same time. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. Thanks for sharing that. And thanks for kind of walking us through how you assess if a client needs a reverse diet and the steps that you would take them through and what you look for. I think that it was really important to make that that note of like, if you are eating even below your basal metabolic rate, this is a pretty distinct sign that at least consistently, you're eating there consistently, that we're going to need a reverse to get you back to your maintenance calories. And we're actually going to include some additional resources for you guys in here on reverse dieting that Kirsten's going to share, a couple freebies, and then even a course if you do want to take yourself through your own reverse diet. But we're going to talk a little bit more in detail about how to do that and when it's best to work with a coach, or maybe even when would be the best time to do it on your own. So we have a client, and maybe you can use someone as an example. Even you have a client and you know that they need a reverse. What is the next step for you with them? You've assessed and now you're ready to get into the reverse. What does that process look like for them?
So yeah, we start increasing calories, and it depends how low the person is right now. If they are eating even under their BMR, the basal metabolic rate, then I'm going to bring the calories up to their BMR level immediately. There's nothing to wait there. If it's not as severe, and I gotta say, in most cases, it's not, at least in my work. I'm lucky. I don't see too many like 1,000 calorie a day people, but I know they do exist. But if somebody is, they are not that low, then we're gonna, at the first week, we're gonna add about 100 calories to what they were normally eating. And then from there on, it's constant. It's like monitoring how your body responds to these calorie increases.
Mm-hmm.
In general, you should be able to increase the calories by 50 or by 100 every 2 weeks or so. So that's kind of like a rough guideline, but I really go like, individually, each person is different. So I've definitely had people who have been able to add 100 calories every 2 weeks, and the reverse has been relatively quick. And then I also have some people who are just prefer slower pace. Part of it is also psychological. They're just afraid. And then we do like 50 calories like every 2 weeks or so, and they are okay with it being slower, just that it's psychologically easier for them to manage. But how we see, like how do we know when it's the right time to add more calories? We take midsection measurements. So I take the full measurements once a month, and then midsection every 2 weeks. And the midsection is important to take, like your belly button and your smallest part of waist, because if we start seeing numbers going up there, we know that we are putting on a little too much body fat right now. And then we're going to kind of pause with the calorie increase, wait a week or two, let things kind of level out a little bit, and then we add again. But of course, if we see that the midsection measurements and the scale, even sometimes they stay completely the same, then we are confident we can add more calories. And this is how we keep kind of inching up until we get to the point of, what I have estimated for them is their true total daily energy expenditure. But sometimes, and this is actually good news if we're able to get even past that, because if your body responds really well, and in most cases, the bodies, like the people who do resistance training and walk and eat high protein, their bodies respond really well. So sometimes we can even get past that number. And maybe I estimated that your total daily energy expenditure is 2,200 and think that we stop there. But we keep going and we see measurements are going great. Energy is great. Now we're already 2,300. That's awesome. And we just keep like pushing as high as we can. So that's kind of how it goes. And with the scale weight, some people don't want to weigh themselves, and that's okay. I don't make them. But those who do, now the scale, it can stay the same. I've seen everything. I've seen the scale staying the same. I've seen it drop, and I've seen it drop massive, which is pretty amazing. And I've seen it gone up. So you can see everything, but your focus should not be on the scale. This is probably one of the hardest things to understand for people, that this is not about the scale, and also reverse diet is not a weight loss guarantee. I think some people think it might be. It's not. The reverse diet is your preparation for future fat loss.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So you're saying that in a reverse diet, the way that you track progress is through circumference measurements in the midsection weekly, and then every other week total body. And
No, actually, I do
or did I have it reversed?
no. So I do full body measurements once a month and the midsection bi-weekly. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Got it. And then you were saying in terms of the scale, you've seen the scale stay
Yep.
the same, go up, or even come down with a reverse diet. And it's just giving you information of how the body is responding to this increased calorie intake.
Yeah, and the weight loss is of course the most awesome thing that everybody wants to see. But I think it's about 30% of people who experience that right now. I have this amazing story. I think that would be very encouraging for everybody. Somebody who started with me, she was weighing 234 pounds. And she was eating 1,700 calories and had been eating this way for a couple of years. So now we have increased her calories up to 2,500 and she has lost 19 pounds. So this is
Wow.
this is amazing. But this is not everybody. Another example that I might give is for somebody who started at 152 or something, and then she gained in the process of reverse, she gained about 4 pounds or a little bit more. But if you saw the pictures, you would think that the eating more, where she's 4 pounds heavier, that she's actually weighing less there. I actually did this on my Instagram. I asked, hey, what do you think she weighs? Has she lost weight? And a lot of people, yeah, she has lost weight. I'm like, she has gained 4 pounds. So your body composition may change like incredibly. But if you only keep your eyes on the scale, you're getting it wrong. This is not about the scale.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I had a client that I did a reverse diet with, my only reverse diet client, and her body composition changed so much. Right. You could just see the muscle putting on being added to her body, the fat over the muscle getting smaller, showing her muscle mass. Her body shape changed completely, but the weight and the measurements didn't really change that much. But if we didn't have the photos to show us how her body composition changed, we would have been pretty disappointed, or she would have been pretty disappointed, right? Just looking at those numbers. So I think photos are also really, really helpful. And I remember when you put that poll up, and I was like, I said she stayed the same, because that's what happens a lot with my clients, is their body changes a lot and their weight tends to stay the same, or their inches come down. And you're like, nope, she gained 4 pounds. And I was like, wow, it's an amazing job.
Yeah, it's so cool. But it's a little bit difficult to kind of know who's going to respond how. But I'll say that like what this woman, like both of these examples that I gave you, what's common, both of them, is that they have been very, very consistent with 3 workouts a week, 10,000 steps every day, and following the macros that I have been giving them. So like adhering to the plan. And yeah, you said also before that we want to talk about, is it important to track macros? And I'm kind of getting there a little bit already. If you do it, you make it a lot easier for yourself. Maybe not the day to day, like, oh yeah, to put everything on scale and weigh, but you will, like, the way you're going to get results, it's better. The results are more guaranteed this way if you follow the plan. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And that was my other question for you. And then we can hop into macros is, are these women who were eating 13, 14, 1,500 calories, are you having them strength train and expend energy walking and exercising within their programs?
Yes. Everybody in my program do strength training and walking. Yes.
And then do you see that if you found that made them more hungry and helped them reach that 100-calorie addition that they needed easier? Or, I mean, I'm sure it's subjective for each person.
No, I like that question. It's a really good one. So yes, their hunger will go up a little bit, because now, let's say they start lifting, or maybe they lifted already before, but honestly, like so many lifting programs I've seen, they're just crap. So now when they start better lifting program, they start putting on real muscle. And then this muscle demands more energy. So this is why they're starting to feel a little more hunger. And this is a really welcome change. And I think a lot of people think that there's something bad about it, or we're conditioned to think that we should never be hungry, or, women should never be hungry, all this BS. It's not true. It's actually a good thing. And especially when they start waking up in the morning and being hungry. This is a really good thing because it tells us about that the metabolism
Mm-hmm.
is healing. So it's a good
Yes.
thing.
I've been working with a few women who
Mm-hmm.
have been tracking their hunger and their cravings in their food journal. And we have the hunger and rating scale. It's the most common scale out there. So 1 is super hungry, keeled over, nauseous. 10 is super full, keeled over, too full. 5 is neutral, not hungry, not full. And a lot of women were sharing that they were eating when they were kind of full. They were like, I'm at a 5, or I'm at a 6, or I'm a 7. Okay, tell me a little bit more about this. A lot of women fear getting hungry because maybe in the past they've had really restrictive diets. The reason for them eating when they were actually a bit more full is they were afraid to let themselves get hungry, and they didn't know what hunger actually felt like. And that was due to either having dieted so restrictively in the past, and so that they feared not being able to have food now in their day to day. And so they wouldn't allow themselves to get hungry for fear of that scarcity around food, or the consistency of always eating, right? And always feeling like looking to food for comfort or satisfaction or whatever it was. And so I've had to encourage a lot of these new clients to allow themselves to get to that hunger of a 3 or a 4 and just see how they can respond. How long can they go at this level 4 without coming to the next meal and feeling super ravenous or overeating? Can you let yourself get to a 3? How long can you be at a 3 without getting hangry or overeating at the next meal or letting it impact your blood sugar or whatever it might be? So yeah, I think there's this fear, but also not a lot of knowledge around hunger and what that should feel like, and that it's okay to actually let yourself be a little hungry. Yeah.
The dieting definitely does that. It creates this like such an uncomfortable feeling, and you don't want to experience it again. Then that's where the fear of hunger comes from. I definitely had it too. Like when I, in my early 20s, did a lot of, like I said, so much overtraining and eating barely anything. And I felt hungry a lot. I was hungry a lot, but I didn't let myself to eat, or didn't eat, enough or whatever. And then later I struggled with for a long time to, when I got past this, right? Then later it was like, oh, I don't want to have that feeling anymore. So definitely I got myself to the point where I actually overate because I was so terrified of feeling that hunger. Both of them took some time to resolve and overcome. And now it's definitely normal, but it wasn't for a while. For many years, it wasn't like normal sensation.
Yeah. And now that you're saying that, I remember a period in my life where I was struggling to lose weight, but I also feared, I didn't know what being hungry was. And because I was always encouraged to overeat as a child and never allowing myself to get hungry, always having snacks and abundance of food around, and, food out on the counter, you could eat whenever you saw it or wanted it. I never knew what hunger felt like. And so that's why I struggled for so long with fat loss, was because I just didn't know that that's what you needed to feel and where you needed to be to get to that fat loss phase or have those fat loss results. So that's it's all coming back. It's all coming back to me. You kind of forget like the past version of yourself sometimes, you're like, because it was for me, it was a long time ago. So yeah. All right. Let's talk about macros. And we touched on this a little bit. And my question to you is, do you have to track macros in order to do a successful reverse diet? And your response was, if you want better results, right, more accurate results, and maybe even quicker results, because it'll be a little bit more streamlined and a more direct point from A to B, you do recommend macro tracking for your reverse diet.
Yeah, I do. It is more controlled and it's more reliable because you, like I said, how I do it is to add 50 to 100 calories. And then that's pretty difficult if you are intuitively eating or not tracking anything, to even know how much you're consuming right now and how to add that 50 or 100, or like stay very structured with it. So I think one thing that could go wrong is that if you start adding more. So if you think you're adding 100, but you're actually adding 200, 250 calories, and then it's just too much too quickly, and then you probably going to put on a little bit more body fat that you wanted to. But the goal with the reverse diet is, yes, you may gain little body fat, you may, especially if you're like very thin at first. Some people need some body fat, but we still want to minimize that. But now if you don't have a clue like what you're doing, you're not tracking anything, and you just may go overboard with it and just like put on more body fat that you wanted. And I've heard these stories, and some of them are like just really really sad stories, or people didn't know that they do a reverse diet, but for some reason or another they were just encouraged to just start eating more, right? Let's say you had a hormonal issue, and I had it too, didn't have my periods for many years. Just start eating more. And I've had a few clients tell me, and one of them, we are doing a proper reverse diet right now, but there was a period in her time when she really took that to heart. She was like, okay, I have to work on my hormones, let me just eat anything and as much as I want. And she is a tiny person. So right now she's barely 100 pounds, but she said at one point she put on 50 pounds with this result, because she was encouraged. She's like, go take everything, eat everything.
Wow.
And, she has, this, it didn't feel good. She still says that she feels sort of traumatized by that, but she thought she has to do it. So maybe what you were asking is not as extreme, or I don't think that listeners will go like, oh, let's go to town now with this. But I think still it is way better if you're able to track your food and take it like step by step and take the measurements and control things a little bit more. You're just going to get better results.
Mm-hmm. And the macronutrient ratio that you prescribe clients, is it 30% protein, 30% carbs, 40% fats? Like, what's your breakdown? Do you have a specific formula that you use, or is it individual per client? Mm-hmm. Is it individual per if they're exercising or what their daily energy demands are?
Yeah, I think actually this is something that a lot of people get wrong. They think, and I don't know, probably a lot of people do it this way, that just assign percentages. That would be a freaking easy job. Because why do you even need a coach to just go take your percentages? I don't do it this way. Like the only thing that I use percentage for is fat, and even then I see if it should be 30 or 35 or something in between. But the protein and carbohydrates, I calculate them differently. I always take into account person's activity, their goal weight, if they have a goal weight, also their age, like also if they are in menopause or if they're not in menopause, how well they can tolerate carbs. Of course, if there's something like we're talking like high A1C or just general higher blood sugar reason, all these things have to be taken into account. That's why I don't like percentages, and I work literally with everybody individually to figure out these numbers for them.
Wow, how amazing that they get this personalized approach from you. And just you sharing all this. First of all, I didn't know that it was so involved of a reverse diet. I had some guidance from another coach when I was taking my client through it, but you've had so much experience, and so you've learned what works, what doesn't work. And I love that it's an individualized approach to the client's needs. The fact that you're talking about if they're in perimenopause or they have high blood sugar response or how active they are or their goals. This is amazing. This is so good. So if anyone out there is listening and feels like maybe you're curious if you need a reverse diet, you have a sneaking suspicion that maybe you do, you're struggling to lose weight, you're in a plateau, or you're experiencing any of those symptoms that we talked about earlier, definitely reach out to Kersten. Her Instagram will be below, and definitely see if you can link up with her and get more information, because this is incredibly valuable, because imagine getting back to a place of maintenance where your metabolism can be functioning healthy and you feel energized, you feel good, you're exercising consistently, your body is responding to the stimulus that you are demanding of it with your training and your nutrition. It's just going to feel, you're going to feel like a whole new person.
Yeah, it is true. I never met a person who's been through a reverse diet and said that their energy is worse. Some people, they may I've gained a few pounds, or like, oh my God, I don't know. These doubts can creep in sometimes, but let me tell you, if you have this gut feeling that I might need this, it sounds like this is me. Ooh, I don't know. You probably need it. And the energy, yes, like everybody tells me that their energy is better. Like I haven't heard the opposite.
Yeah. So The inevitable question is, how long does a reverse diet take? Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun. I wish there was one number, of course. Everybody's going to be done in 8 weeks, but there is not. So, a lot of factors. So, like I mentioned before, it depends on your starting point. If you started way lower than your actual energy needs are, then it might take longer for you to get to that point. So, it makes sense, right? If let's say you have two people, they both actually need 2,200 calories. One has been eating 1,000 and the other has been eating 1,800. Then obviously the one who's been eating 1,800 is going to get there faster, right? But it also depends on how much muscle you
Right.
have on your body. Those who have been doing resistance training have more muscle mass, tend to get through it faster because they just have the muscle that absorbs, these new nutrients and put them into good use, right? We're lifting weights and we can eat more carbohydrates and it's good. And then also it depends on how long you have in this underfed state. So again, somebody who has been dieting for a decade is in a worse place versus somebody who cut their calories for 2 months, right? So there's so many, 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 many factors. And I've seen people get to their maintenance calories, let's say in 6 weeks. And I've seen them get there. Somebody was even close to a year.
Wow.
It's rare though. It doesn't have to be. It depends so much on your own resistance too. And if you let go of that
Yes.
resistance and trust the process, you're gonna get there faster. Just don't wait all day long or like
Yes.
several weeks. It's just pointless. You want to get your goal faster, then
Yeah.
move on with it. Don't wait forever.
Thanks for sharing that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is the best case scenario, right? Focus on the macros, focus on working with a coach that can guide you. Know that there's going to be individual factors that are going to impact your reverse diet. But the sooner that you can get started, the more efficient you can be with
Mm-hmm.
the prescribed program.
Yeah.
Hopefully the faster that you'll get there. So, what are some of the most common challenges you see for women when they're reverse dieting, whether it's in lifestyle or it's tracking or it's increase in hunger or decrease in hunger or increase in cravings? Like, what are some of the things that you find that you're having to work through with clients the most during their reverse?
Mm-hmm. Well, expectations, and then the weight. So maybe let's start from the weight because, like I said, some people experience it going up, and that can be very hard to see because we're just so scale oriented, focused, and if the focus is so strong that we don't pay attention to other positive things that are happening, then it's almost like you don't see those positives at all. You're just like, oh, but I gained a pound this week. Okay, but what else did you gain? Did you gain better energy? Are you sleeping better? Do you feel stronger? Have you been able to increase some weights at the gym? So we have to count these types of wins. So I think the scale is one of the biggest things. The other thing, and I think this is for those who choose to do it by themselves without a coach, they stop too soon. So let's say that their estimated total daily energy expenditure is somewhere around 2,000 calories. And like I said, we take measurements and see how we're doing. And they see like a little increase and then they start, they become afraid of it. And they're maybe only at 1,700 calories and then they think they're done, but they're not. So you should just give yourself the time for these measurements to level out and then inching upwards until you get to that 2,000 or whatever the target was. So don't give up too soon because it will be so much better for your metabolism. And later on, if you want to go into fat loss, you're going to get so much better results because if you now got to 2,200, whatever the 15% is, I can't do the math off the top of my head, but it's going to be still a good amount of calories versus if you started the cut from 1,700. See how little food you have now? So it's so worth it to keep pushing that maintenance up.
Yeah.
So this is one thing, like the being afraid of the weight gain and stopping too early. If you do it on your own, if you work with me, I'm going to keep pushing you. I'm like, no, we're going. And then the other thing is expectation. So I think sometimes the reverse diet is marketed as this is a guaranteed weight loss and fat loss, but it's not. It does happen. Like I said, about 30% of people, it does happen, but it's not for everybody. So you can't be like, oh, okay, I'm going to get started with this this reverse and I'm going to start losing weight. And if it doesn't happen in the first 2 weeks, you're already disappointed and discouraged and all these words come out. I'm like, no, remember what we talked. This is not it, right? You're not supposed to actually lose weight. This phase is for you to prepare you for future weight loss. No matter what your scale does, this is still a preparation phase and it needs to be done. And then one more thing when it comes to expectations
Yes.
is that also sometimes, people think that they should see like massive body composition change, and it can happen. Again, I gave an example before. It can happen very well, but sometimes it doesn't happen until we actually go into a deficit. So it can be where the person is gaining physical strength, which is wonderful, and it's very important to train, because if you don't work out, these new calories are just going to go into more body fat. So now you put on muscle, but your body fat hasn't started to go down yet because you're not in a calorie deficit. So you're in this weird in between phase where like, what the heck is happening, right? Like I don't see like much definition just yet, but that's because you haven't entered the deficit yet. So it just may come a little bit later for you. So it's not reverse diet is not
Right.
as predictable as a calorie cut is. It's like it depends on so many things,
Mm,
and you just have to really trust the process and trust the person that you work with, and know that it will be like something good will be on the other side of it. Just trust it.
yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Just trust it. Just trust it. And so, how does someone know if maybe
Mhm.
working with a coach is their best route, or if they're
Yeah.
ready to
Of
take
course,
themselves through a
if you want to do it
reverse?
on your own, you can. You just need to know the right steps, and I think we've talked about all of them on this podcast today. So it really depends on what kind of person you are. Like, can you do this on your own? Do you have the accountability from yourself? Are you strong enough to stick with the process even when the scale starts doing things that you don't necessarily like? Are you going to follow through? Or are you going to be, the opposite was like, no, I'm going to give up super soon. And also, if you know that if you just need somebody externally to check, to encourage you, to tell you, hey, we keep going, or hey, this week we're going to hold off. If you need a person like that, then it's so much better idea to sign up to work with a coach. But I do have a very successful people who have done this on their own using the do it yourself program that I have. So definitely it is possible.
Okay. Cool. So tell us a little more about the DIY program that you have, and I know you're going to be offering it at a discount for those that are interested in taking themselves through their own reverse. Is it essentially just the steps that you've taken us through today? Can you tell us a little bit more about it?
Yeah, it's called Metabolic Reset, and it is a program that, yes, takes you through steps, exact steps, but it also includes a pretty detailed tracking sheet that is just yours. So I want you to keep track of how you're progressing
Mm,
every single week. So this
cool.
is literally what I do with my one-on-one clients too. Every week you're going to put in like, all the numbers that I'm asking you. You're going to take the measurements. You're going to hold yourself accountable. So you have the tracking sheets there. I do have chapters for hormonal health. There are chapters for how to just like reduce your stress, because it is important. I also have 3 success stories that I'm sharing that you probably resonate with, or at least with one of them, and kind of show how other people have done it. So it's a really detailed program, and you do get everything that you need from there. It's just like if you're able to hold yourself accountable, then you can totally do your own reverse using this program.
Super cool. That's so cool that you put that together.
Yeah, sure.
And we're going to be offering that at a little discounted rate, right, for our listeners?
Yeah. So should we set a code, Laura? Is that good? Let's use
Yeah,
that code.
code
And
code Laura, and it's going to
yes,
save you some monies. So that'll be linked below.
yeah.
And so, what if someone's not ready to purchase a program? Do you have any DIY offers that people can kind of reference?
hmm I do have, so I have my podcast and I have a lot of videos on YouTube. So some time ago, I did a 3-part mini series all about reverse diet. So it's probably useful to check that out
Cool.
and
Awesome.
learn. It also
Yeah.
includes the next steps. So we can probably drop these links in the description as well.
Yeah, we will. We'll drop those down below.
Yeah.
So is there anything else about reverse dieting or the process, the ideal client, how you work with clients that we haven't touched on that you feel would be important to speak on?
Mm, I think we talked about almost everything. But I, I want to say again, like if you suspect that you need it, then you probably do need it. There's just so many people who do need it. It's just like this thought of it is scary. The thought of like adding calories is super scary. But you just have to get past this fear. And also, I like to say that if you have really dieted a ton, then the reverse diet is not a question of like, oh, if I'm going to do it or not. It's a question of when am I going to do it? Like, do I do it now? Am I going to wait for a little longer? Because I've had people say that, oh, I'll do it later. Right now, I just need to lose weight. Okay, but they're stuck. They can't lose weight until they do the reverse diet first. So it's really it becomes a absolutely thing that you really need to do if you in the future want to lose more fat, because right now your body's not responding.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. And guys, Kersten and I have known each other a long time, and she keeps coming on the podcast. I keep inviting her on because I really respect her and her methodology and her approach. And she's just an awesome human being also.
Oh, thank you.
So, of course. So if you're looking for a coach that's in their integrity, knows what they're doing, is honest, is going to have your best interest in mind, and knows what the hell they're doing. I know I said that twice. Kersten is it. Don't be afraid to reach out to her. She's super sweet, super nice. And also follow her on Instagram. She's going to be linked down below. Thank you so much for being on. I loved this conversation. I learned a lot, but I know that I am not going to be taking anyone through a reverse. I'm going to be sending them your way, just like I did to a recent client. And she's on track now, which is exciting.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for being on. And I can't wait to have you on future episodes again.
Sounds good. Thank you so much, Laura.
Of course. Talk to you soon.
Bye.